Welcome back to my continuing coverage of the preview of Third Reich events. Just in case you haven't been following along, Third Reich events is still, I don't know whether you want to call it an alpha stage, a beta stage. I've sort of used both those terms. The very first series of three videos and the sort of previous one was very much an alpha in that things were I just wanted to show off sort of some of what I was doing, but didn't look very well. But in a way I sort of look at this as beta because we already have this well working and established how it works for Hearts of Iron 3. It's just a conversion over, so it's not like, oh, what am I going to do? It's more like how best to work it in 4, not what do I want to do or how it's going to work. So, you know, it's alpha in that it's not all feature complete, meaning not all events are there, that we're just trying to balance out or kill any last minute bugs, but nor is it in the stage that we don't know how we're going to work everything out, or I don't know how we're going to work everything out, because I more or less do. It's just doing the integration process. So we're sort of going through this, and I'm just about 100 events have been completed. I did first 4 episodes, one right after the other. Gone in and fixed some of the bugs that I found, not that they're fixed. Some of the little tags were displaying the wrong name. Not that it's been updated into the playing version here, but gone in and fixed those. So we're still fixing stuff, most assuredly here. Just want to let you know all that. I'm going to play a little bit more because I want to show it off, want to keep interest going. And of course, you know, you guys can give me feedback, what you like, don't like, think I should do different, because maybe I'm just thinking in old terms and there's something more to think about that you should, you know, put in front of me, and I'd be happy to have you do that. If you see how something should be done differently, please post, whether here on YouTube or on the forum, you know, Third Reich events thread on the Paradox forum. Either way, I'm catching both of those there. Love to keep conversations going either place. So you can post there to deal with particularly one question from that came up. Though I answered it there, we'll talk here just in case not everybody's reading everything else. By my friend the Roman Ruler. Basically the future of TRE and Black Ice. Panzeroo and the Black Ice crew are my good friends. I really like those guys a lot. I love Black Ice for Hearts of Iron 3. Everything I've heard about, I have not been getting into the seeing their work in development other than what they posted, but everything I've seen that they're doing for Hearts of Iron 4 seems great. But the first version of TRE will be a standalone version, very much like you're seeing here. I don't know what they're doing for event image display. They're welcome to use the version that Schwabenland created that I'm using. We very much want other modders to use it to help in compatibility, though they may do something different, and they still may work out well enough together. We will see. So at first I'm going to make this version standalone, and that open to, you know, base players of Hearts of Iron 4. There are multiple reasons for this. One of them is my continued mission of education, both of historical facts and, shall we say, which if you've been a long time viewer of the channel, of lessons from history. I want to reach the largest audience possible. There will be a lot of people that will either think black ice is too hard, or think black ice has just gone in a wrong direction, or we'll just have, I don't know, just something, whatever the thing is that will make them quit black ice and not play it. There will be, I don't, how many people that would maybe play, because I know I've seen posters on different forums say they won't play mods. They'll only play expansions and DLCs. If it hasn't been somehow approved by the company, or they haven't worked with the developers in any way, shape, or form, they won't play it. Okay. But if you're open to playing any mods at all, which obviously this is, mod development here, I want you to be willing to play Third Reich events, because it'll just sit on the basic game. And that I anticipate there will be, whether it's a mod like historically plausible mod, or even something like Tommy Lotto's Fox and the Lion mod, or other ones that maybe, that one's focused on Italy or something else, or just my friends that are making the Waffen SS mod, that I want TRE to be potentially, through probably a patch or two, to be compatible with these other mods. And so if it was just tailored for black ice, that's probably not going to happen. So this is going to be the first version. Now it's going to, last version was over 600 events. I don't anticipate the first release version to be that big. It may be, but I don't anticipate it being that big. I'm looking probably at around 400 plus events. Right now we've got about 100. And I'm planning on, just to cover some of this stuff because I think you're interested in it, I'm planning on, instead of this be Fritz Todt Fortification Engineer, he'll be Fritz Todt Organization Todt subtitle here, and he'll have a trait very much like I had for the Black Ice version, for all of the ministers. I'm thinking of adding a production type version for Goring here, just simply taking that image and getting rid of the bomb image and adding a factory image and making a version of a minister for him, maybe force you to have him both with benefits and negatives, like I did for the earlier version. Maybe doing that, and adding some other minister types, or additional ministers to the mod. Maybe doing some additional generals, and doing some other things like that before release. So it's not just getting the events in. And the big thing that I'm sort of working on now is, and I haven't done it yet, but it's starting here, is this. If you see it, it needs, if you look down one of the X's there, flag Reinsmend. I'm gonna, again, that's one of the little thingies that you get to change to call the flag something else or whatever, but it requires that. I don't yet to convert. I've made the event before in the old. This is why it's sort of, sorry if it's a bit confusing. I've yet to make the new version of that event, so we can't. No, I may before we get there, in playing this series, I may make the event to be able to continue on playing it. But I've yet to make that event, so we can yet start Demand the Sudetenland. But what's going to happen is once you do this, you're going to start this, and I'm thinking of shortening the time instead of the full time to do the national focus. But that is then going to do, once you do the national focus, instead of doing anything directly, what it will do is it will fire the event chain that I developed, that I've yet to see someone who has done a better one, though. possibly either somebody will, or maybe, I don't know, one other mod that I didn't know about, a more detailed event chain with, it's mainly that Britain gets to make the choice of whether, because France will go, I take it France will go along with Britain, or France won't go to war over Czechoslovakia without Britain. However you look at that, so Britain is the deciding factor, and there's a very, very likelihood that Britain doesn't go to war over Czechoslovakia. And if you don't have the it's set so that if it's an AI, the Czechs always capitulate over the Sudetenland, is the way it's coded. If you're a human player and you're playing as Czechoslovakia, then you would have the chance to fight, even fighting alone, instead of giving in to the Germans. But the AI Czechs will always give in, is the way I have it coded. So that national focus will fire an event chain that is fairly sophisticated, as well as informative, of the rounds of talks and flying back and forth to London, and all that stuff will be covered in there, with a, like I say, a highly likelihood that the British will cave, as historically happened. But there's still the oops, what if they don't? And then you can choose to whether go back to your monthly save, or if you made a save just before going down the path of doing the national focus, or whatever. If you want, if you want to have the peaceful solution, you can do so. Or you can decide, hey, well, we're going to fight it out this time. It'll be up to you to decide what you want to do, but mostly it'll be the historical path. That TRE, as the decision-making process for the AI, is designed to mostly go down the historical path. Like I say, the AI Czechs give in, but the Brits might fight, which means the Czechs will fight and the French will fight, and the war will start over Czechoslovakia. Like I say, that has all been done for Hearts of Iron 3. I just still haven't coded that part of it up into the new code set. So either, hopefully I'll get that done before we get to the point. But just to give you sort of an idea of how I'm having to, and some of the stuff is interpreting it and figuring out how best to take apart this national focus tree, so that these are no longer just click buttons. Should be, just like there is for the Sudetenland, there should be as big a thing going on, though it would already sort of be in swing in 36 for the Anschluss. I just haven't coded that up yet for any of the versions of TRE, but that is in the plans, not necessarily for the first release version, but that is in the plans for TRE. There's a lot that that I'm looking at to do here. Also, we have a bunch of coverage of the anti-Comintern pack that I have yet to code in, and so these national focuses will be still utilized, but you'll no longer press button, wait 70 days, get your result. I think it's sort of boring and uninformative. I'm trying to add texture back into it with choices, and theoretically saying, if I think a nation has a 80% chance of joining the anti-Comintern pact, I don't know, Lithuania or whatever, or something like that, I may code that in as a thing. I haven't done any of that kind of stuff yet, but we're still looking at doing that, and so just sort of covers that at first. And so it's going to take some time to get TRE released, and I'm not following or chasing the developments of Black Ice at this point. So there will be a time that at least the first version of Black Ice is out, and I don't know that even TRE will be ready at that point, depending on, I mean, they sort of said mid-August, which is now, and they've had, I don't know how bad, but some health issues with some of the developers for Black Ice. I hope they get well. That has delayed things, but so, and as I anticipated just before, because this is a massive project, even with a bunch of people that they have working on it, there are delays. So I don't know when it's coming out, but even once it's out, I don't know if TRE will be out. But I'm not chasing the developments of Black Ice at the start and release. I'm going to produce a solid product here and get it out to the players. Then I will take a look at whether I just make a minimum compatibility patch so you can play them both. Basically, I'm sure, I haven't looked at it, unless they publish the changes, but I'm sure they're just going to be changing some elements of the national focus tree, and since I'm changing it, we're going to have to somehow make a compatible version. I don't know what they're doing to it, whether they're just adding national focuses or they're radically changing this whole thing. And then currently, like when you do the West Wall, it fires a chain of events for me. What do they do with the West Wall? And do we go with theirs, or go with mine, or do we go with a mix of both, or whatever? How difficult that will be to integrate, I don't know. And that's sort of the minimum stage. The sort of maximum stage is if I really start playing, which is a likely thing, Black Ice on a routine basis, I will start really making integrated events and things to take advantage of their more in-depth game. And so it won't be just a compatibility patch, it'll be a more in-depth Third Reich events that very well may be created. But that, we're going a bit long on this, but that very well may happen, but that isn't going to be happening, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks after the release of either Black Ice or TRE. It just not happening that fast. Okay, let's see. Deutsches Stadion, or German Stadium, is the Reich Partei Nuremberg. They planned on the Nuremberg rally type events, wanting to make a huge stadium. You got to remember, this is in a world that is, shall we say, largely still pre-television. Obviously, we covered that Germany was on the cutting edge of television. So was Britain. So was the United States, and a little bit as well in France, where all had television stations at this time. But so that they wanted to be able to have seats, as it says there, for 400,000 people. And so that you want to have all these attendees instead of people watching it, as they're thinking of watching at home. But there is also, and I've studied this a bit, a mass psychology. And this is why people still attend football games in lousy weather. I'm not a football fan, I'm talking American football fan, but it's also theoretically European football or soccer. Not a big fan of either of those. I think it's, in a modern sense, if you love those games, you got to know it's so much better to watch it on television at home, in the sense of seeing the game, watching the game. It's just better, especially if you're, up in the nosebleed seats. It's so much better. But people like going to mass events. They want to be part of the event, part of going, football is sometime, depending on in America, what state you're in. It's winter, it's cold, it's awful conditions, but people still want to go to it. I don't get that, to the enough point that I want to go to it, but people like attending a mass event and being part of it. It's part of a group psychology. It's part of, maybe, well, I was there at history, but there's more to it than that. And the Nazis really realized this phenomenon of the human being, and that's why the Reich Partei days that they set up every year at Nuremberg. They had so many events. I am studying a lot of those. I am finding more. I don't know if you know about what a tinny is. TINNY, T-I-N-N-E-S. Tinnies were not always made out of tin, but they were sort of little badges that you bought at an event that sort of commemorated the event, sort of like Olympic pins that were the fad back in the late 80s and early 90s or whatever. That, you know, they were badges to be worn that sort of showed that you attended the event. They weren't, you could wear them on your uniform, your SA uniform or your Hitler Youth uniform, sort of for that day or that event, but it wasn't something you would continue to wear afterwards, is my understanding. It wasn't continued in, but you also could wear it in your civilian clothes. That was sort of showed that you attended, but you had to buy them, and they were, I don't know the prices, but it was something like, they were probably made for 5 cents a piece, and they were being sold for 25 cents by volunteers, you know, party members at these events, and to raise money for, and a lot of them were local events for all aspects of the National Socialist Party and regime, whether it was the SA or literally the Nazi gardening clubs. I found tinnies and information and posters and brochures that I'm going to eventually make that cover various National Socialist gardening clubs. Okay, I'm going to, as TRE develops, I'm going to show you how pervasive in life the National Socialist movement was. And that's part of what I'm doing, is to show just how domineering they were in the life of the people in there. But so that these events, whether big 400,000 people events or 4,000 people events, you know, out for a Sunday at going to the local party, whatever thing. But these tinnies, and this is how I'm sort of learning about all these things, is, you know, they would sell to raise money to support whatever the local activities within the party, and it was a way, and it was something that was, you know, pocket change, pocket money. It wasn't expensive money, but there was, you know, a high markup margin for them to do it. And, you know, so if you have 4,000 people show up and they all, I don't know, donate 50 cents, that's $2,000, pays for the event or whatever, you know, it covers these kinds of things. So it was doing a lot of that, and so they understood this mass psychology. And so you see a picture here of Adolf Hitler, Albert Speer. I don't know right offhand who those two guys were, that they made because they didn't have computers then, and they did study things like the Colosseum. And if you look at the Roman Colosseum and how they were able to effectively move people in and out pretty quickly through the Colosseum in ancient Rome, large numbers. They did study that, but what they were worried about is how well you would be able to sit up here and see the action going on down here. So they went to, I don't know exactly where, but not where it was planned, but somewhere else along a mountainside, and graded it down to the angle and built on, you know, sort of bleacher type, you know, seating, you know, safe enough to sit people on it, but just there, so that you could sit around on it and look down at an area to see how well you could see if you were way up in the nosebleed section or each thing, so you get the eye line. So this is Hitler and Speer walking around this mock-up they made of what it would be like to sit there. This is how much Hitler himself got involved in it. Once they had the mock-up made, and maybe before, but he went and visited and hiked around for at least, you know, half a day or whatever it would take to hiking around these hills and sitting in different places in the seats. He was that concerned about how well this would work. And so, since it will only cost 2 Bismarcks, you have to decide. This one here, we for 90 days reduce civilian factory output, basically. Or we can do no sports, which is sort of what I called it, but it's also the political rallies and that kind of thing. So we lose national unity and change fascist popularity. You have this choice. You get a choice here. We're going to do it, but you can choose not to. Okay, now we've just had a bunch of world tension happen. So we want to, as soon as we can, change this to war economy. Looks like if we hadn't paid for the Deutsches Stadium, we would be able to do it now, but It'll happen very soon. Okay, dispersed architecture, doing that. Got all we can there for 37. Go to 38. I'm going to wait to 38 to start that. Go to 39 for upgrading there. So what we're going to do is elastic defense. Germans were actually very good at elastic defense. Okay, now we've got that. Better machine tools. Let's improve. Yeah. Like I said, just wait. War economy, which will really make our economy boom much more. I sort of disagree that we can get the war economy. I know we're talking Nazi Germany. They don't have as many gradients as I'd like on the economy. Okay, now. What are we lacking? That's a good thing to look at. Tanks and trucks, okay. Let's improve truck manufacturing. Done a little bit of organizing up here with a Panzer Army sort of, well, army, multiple corps, Western Front and Eastern Front, Ost Front. So we're starting to get things a bit more organized. Okay, Ford Werkzeitung, basically Ford manufacturing magazine. You're getting this because we increased our... This is obviously a real publication. You see the various covers. Sometimes they're on the Ford cars, other times they're on Hitler or the workers and other things. Sort of these cover topics. You can see inside. It's really mostly how automotive things are improving Germany, focusing obviously on Ford cars. See the NSKK symbol in some of the articles there. If you don't know the NSKK, that's the National Socialist Craft Cart or something like that. Sorry, Germans, I butcher your language a lot, I know. Basically, it's a mixture of started out as sort of SA Motor Storm as part of the SA, but it was broken off onto its own standing like the SS was, and by this time it represents a sort of party motorization element. So if you need to get a bunch of SA members somewhere around in trucks or buses or whatever, sort of the NSKK's job. It also represents basically sort of the traffic police, in that they have for in city somewhat, but mostly it's like out on the Autobahn and other places. They're sort of running around and being the highway patrol, enforcing automobile law enforcement elements. They're doing that. There's sort of the at least like in America, the Department of Motor Vehicles, meaning where you want to get your driver's license, register your car, and doing all of that kind of stuff. That they fulfilled those functions. And they also sort of filled the functions of what, at least in America, the automobile club type thing, roadside assistance and driver's help aid kind of, including travel brochures about, driving around and where to find the right hotels and that kind of thing. The NSKK filled all those functions in a pre-war sense. Once the war started, they started to fill more militaristic things. But this is sort of talking about motorization in Germany and focusing on Ford's contribution to it. Tourists visit Germany. This is the full poster here. Just text gets sort of small. A pleasant trip to Germany. Obviously, this was set up for an English language, but it was produced by the Germans, whether for Britain, America, or other places. Selling it on Zeppelins, on taking a cruise ship there, or flying. They're trying to get you in now. I've yet to come up with a good, could maybe give you political points. Before I gave it a little bit of money because money represented international exchange, that sort of people coming in and converting dollars or pounds or whatever to Deutschmarks or Reichsmarks, I guess, at the time is sort of what I figured the best way to stimulate that game. So that's unfortunately just mostly become an informational event. Now, if you think I'm giving away too much to the game and about it, and I've definitely thought about this myself, there's going to be a lot more events that I won't be covering because they're not yet made, at least in these videos. So there'll be a lot. If you haven't played the earlier versions of TRE, there will still be a lot of surprises coming in. If you're too worried about spoilers, if you haven't already quit, you should quit watching this because we're getting sort of giving them out. We're going to go with Onslaught, and of course you have a new additional research slot. Let's go for trying to do some convoy interdiction research. So we're getting a lot of these pretty quick because we've got a bunch building. So let's instead of stopping every few minutes. Okay, those are still the two that we need to do. So let's up this and up that, and up fighters one. And I want to build transport once we get to factories. Okay, what is this is part of course, the Sudetendeutsches Party's agitation within Czechoslovakia of you know, getting to make the Czechs appear to be unreasonable towards the German minorities here, and it's focusing on deputy leader Karl Hermann Frank. He was a nasty guy. That's him in his Sudeten Party uniform. It's much more simpler than most Nazi uniforms. You see the party badge there. I don't know if quite yet here in 37 he was a member of the SS, but he was definitely a member of the SS before they got the Sudeten. He was the hard line, where Konrad Henlein was most assuredly a Nazi, and you know, I'm not saying good Nazi, bad Nazi. I'm saying Nazi, super Nazi, or Nazi, really bad Nazi. Frank here was a really bad Nazi. He was a really bad piece of work, and so you can read a little bit down there. A little incident with some of the Czech police. So this is continuing to ratchet up the situation here and sour relations countries. So this is all, and this is happening as part of Czechoslovakia. All part of the orchestrated plans. To get it, to give a casus belli. See, paradox with their casus belli are very smart. Is that nations don't just really go, oh, tomorrow we're invading Denmark, or tomorrow we're invading Amsterdam because hey, they got some good resources. They have to develop reasons for it. Well, and I posted this on the forum, to get the research and put all this events in there, it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and you have to have a good background in history. I sort of think I do, and the willingness to do and the time it takes to do the research. It takes more time to research these things than it does to code up the events. The events are often the easier things to do. It's taking me a little bit more time because I'm sort of learning the new system as opposed to something I'm already familiar with. But it's definitely, takes a lot out to it. And so I understand why they don't develop, shall we say, Italy's developing, uh, you know, threats and casus belli with, or developing claims against Yugoslavia. Well, there was a whole program by Italy to develop claims against Yugoslavia, as well as other places. But to go in and do all the research and put all that together takes a lot of time, and they just don't have it. Okay. Japan wants Germany out of China, which they have been getting a boost, German military advisors. Which was cut and hasn't made it back in, whole event chain series on this that someday we'll get back in. But yeah, we'll pull them out. Italy announces just claims on Yugoslavian territory. There was and it was more than just this is overly simplified, and there was a whole ongoing developing claims as well as trying to sweet talk the fascist elements in Yugoslavia into liking Italy. It's sort of going back and forth there, and so getting in all that will be interesting someday. I want to get into that, but that'll take time. Okay, well, we're going to end this episode here. I know it was much more talking than playing, but I wanted to address some of the issues and my thoughts on them. And hey, again, thanks for watching. Thanks for liking the videos here. Please, again, if you would, go onto the Steam. There's a lot of people check out the videos on Steam. It's the same video, but they just see it there. If you upvote it, I would appreciate that. And post your questions, comments, suggestions, ideas, whatever you're thinking. I want to hear it because I'm still in development, and if you, sure, it's cool if you give me a new event idea, but I don't know if I'm going to get to that anytime soon. But if you see whether some of these events that are happening here or like that Come Visit Germany poster campaign that they're putting up around different parts of the world to get tourists in so that they get foreign exchange out, how best do I make that affect the game? I probably could come up with something, but I just want to sort of get the event in here. I've done it. It's right now just informational. If you've got an idea, I'd love to hear it. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.